Petrova Experience team, and I'm joined today by my colleagues Monica Michalski and Liliana Petrova. Monica Michalski is a CX strategist and our Director of Client Engagement. With a background in positive psychology, Monica is a powerful trainer of customer-first teams and their leaders. As a member of our team, she has worked on large public space projects in travel and transportation, where she helps to design exceptional, seamless customer journeys and the customer feedback systems that make them possible. Today, Monica will be monitoring our chat. So to share your questions with her and to participate in our Q&A at the end, please click the little box that says TP for the Petrova Experience. All your questions will go directly to Monica and she'll be able to share them with us. If you're able, we would love for you to turn on your videos so that we can have a real conversation with each other. This is a collaborative workshop kind of environment. We're not talking at you all day. We want to hear what you have to say. So if you can go ahead and turn on your cameras and come into speaker mode so you can see us and we can see you and you can see our presentation.
Hello, everyone.
Liliana Petrova will be leading us today. She is our CEO. She founded the Petrova Experience in 2019 after serving as Director of Customer Experience for JetBlue Airways. Liliana is a passionate aviator who fully embodies our motto in pursuit of customer happiness. Liliana's approach to customer experience strategy, design, and innovation drives the return on investment in customer experience. She brings a passenger-first mentality to understanding the customer, operational knowledge of airline and airport environments, and a technologist's commitment to innovation that improves human experience and business outcomes. With that, I will turn it over to Liliana, who will share our thoughts for the day. Liliana.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. We are a small and mighty group, and to be frank, that's who we wanted to be here today. I'm really hoping that today will be a very much experts type of chat. It will be very informal. Of course, have materials that I'll share with you, but I also want to make sure that you have your questions answered. I have them already, so some of them I'll try to answer throughout the presentation. Then we'll leave some time at the end. We've put them in the end of the chat to see if we can cover what we haven't covered in the conversation until the end. And then, of course, if anything prompts you today while you're looking at these slides, please feel free to reach out and ask your questions again. So where are we and why are we talking about commercialization of revenue today? Let me share myself the screen. Okay. Do you see me? Okay. So where are we? Well, so according to ACI, we're not in a great shape when it comes to getting money out of our passengers. It actually is getting worse. So retail concessions have collected less dollars per passenger or in the totality from retail than in 2019. And car parking is where the increase was. But in addition to that, we are collecting less money from duty-free. Our advertising revenue is going down. And, you know, the only good news here is people are eating and drinking, and there is like a parking of cars going on. But the challenge that we have is that essentially airports are not parking garages. And again, for those of us who also are looking in the future, and we have seen the big statements of our big transformation programs, and I know there are a couple of us here that have this type of mandates. We also know that there is a push to sustainability and modern airport design, and overall usage of cars is not what is preferred, especially in big mega cities. So how are we going to bring back the revenue coming from retail concessions, and how are we going to activate this overall infrastructure that we have invested in from retail perspective? I do believe that we need new revenue models, but I think also that there is a need for, can you hear me, guys?
We can hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry, because the visual froze. So on my side, everybody's frozen. But if you can, it's fine. Um, so what do we need? Well, we need to take this trend and shift it. And when I mean shifted, we need to figure out how to take this, per passenger revenue and get it up. But let's just first define what non-aeronautical revenue is, right? So what we're talking about is how are we going to make more people drink coffee on the go? How are we going to optimize the lounges that we're building? How are we going to make duty-free more visited, luxury shopping more used? And what I want to make sure we are not doing is, especially for airlines, is getting essentially bag fees are not sustainable, and getting the revenue only through fees, it has never been a good motto. Southwest just did it, JetBlue gave up, and we did it back in the day. But ultimately, the smart way of commercializing passenger revenues is really not through bag fees. But what is not tapped yet enough is the optimization of paying with points for all of the credit cards that are issued by airlines. There was an article recently that essentially was saying that airlines today have become credit card companies. I mean, to some extent, if you look at their balance sheets, that is pretty much a big trend. And if you really think about it from an airport's perspective, what that means to airlines and partnerships with airlines, you would really understand that getting out more redemption opportunities for passengers at airports is what's going to make airlines of the future much more happier. But why should we bother, right? What is the ROI of all of this? Well, we know that the average rewards member would spend around 30% more in concessions per transaction. I mean, 30% lift is not a small feat, right? Even if you lift that would be a big impact. Also, 84% of passengers rate travel perks as more important than the reputation of a bank. That's why we see this big shift to lounges, and we see Capital One entering the lounge game. There is a very big play out there, and it is essentially in the real estate of airports. So if more airports understand these dynamics and try to tap into them, there will be a huge upside. And people want to redeem, redemption of points is a real need, and a real kind of like an ROI element of these credit cards that are entering essentially the airports every day. Even when we started our loyalty program in JetBlue, a big focus of airlines is how to create more redemption opportunities. So thinking from a concessions perspective, how that can be enabled would really change the game. So what is commercialization, and what can be really a low-hanging fruit? For example, let's take DFW. I know that DFW today is at the call. If we take your annual passengers and we assume that 10 million of them are kids, and you have 75 million adults, and if we take 25% of these adults and we just somehow build an infrastructure and a journey that would make them buy one extra cup of coffee for $4.50, for example, that would be additional $84 million across the value chain of your airport. So in other words, just one cup of coffee extra would be $1 extra per passenger if we look at 85 million annual passengers. So there's a big power that is untapped in terms of incentivizing utilization of all of these concessions. And, again, why we haven't done it? Because it's expensive, because you have to do a lot of work to get people there. But it really has a very huge upside potential that we need to talk about. And if you look at a loyalty program of any airline, for example, I just picked up the American Airlines, but any airline has that these days. If we take their loyalty program that was evaluated at 6.13 billion in 2024, and we find a way to increase 20% the redemption of points or utilization of this program, you could potentially again across the airport and the airline infrastructure gain tremendous money. So what are we talking about today? We're talking about how to take the customer experience and the passenger experience, teams and work in the airport, and turn it from a cost center into a revenue generator model. And that transition that you can make from one to another can only happen if you have a concerned programmatic approach to how to do this. And if you can find the revenue and understand how that's connected to the overall. So we came up with these two ways that I think is really out there and that can be commercialized. One is what I call the commercialized journey, and the other one is the optimization of concessions. So I'll walk you through these two programs and then we'll go to your questions. So let's start with the commercialized journey. What do I mean by that, right? So the first thing that before I even go there, and I want to talk about is that in order for us to start commercializing our journeys, we need to have some things taken care of. And what I mean by that is that a commercialized journey can only happen if you already have a seamless journey. If people already know where to go, if they're secure in their wayfinding, if they know what's happening in their journey, then they're in the mindset to be tapped into the so-called commercialization element. I think the other thing that I want to mention here is more about my colleagues in the airports, is that sometimes we think of commercial teams as like these bad people. I mean, it was the same in the airline. The commercial teams are these people that are just like the money people. We're not the money people. We are the caring people. We are the customer experience and customer service people. But for the duration of this presentation, I would say, let's assume that if you take money out of your people by adding value to them, their lives, their journey, their experience, that is not a bad thing. That's actually part of the customer service and the customer experience mandate. It doesn't matter that the customer is paying for it because you're giving them a benefit for what you're taking money for. So I think that's a mental shift in customer service and customer experience people that need to happen in order for these things to work. In other words, my service here is not only to serve you in an altruistic way, it's also for me to give you and sell you what you would need at the right time, at the right moment for the right persona. And then the last thing I'll mention is that this whole fees business is really not a sustainable solution, and we should shy away from it and be creative. And why I keep saying this is because when you take fees off of the table, you're forced to think much more creatively about how you can leverage your systems, your information to create value for your passengers. Fees to me are almost like the lazy way of doing this. So taking it out of the equation is actually a key assumption for us to get into this new world of commercialized journey. So what do I mean by that? I mean, we're here, if you're on this call, that means to some extent you understand the concepts of customer journey mapping. We've done this, but we tend to do it around wayfinding and around again, this basic stuff. What if we think about this tool of journey mapping and we say, now we're going to apply the same tool, but now we're going to use it to commercialize that journey. We're going to look for opportunities and ways that we can extract some additional dollar along the way of that journey. And for airlines, that probably would start even at the pre-travel touch points and moments, because that's where you're going to be able to start informing your passenger about what is out there. I mean, I've seen lately lounges are being kind of served to the right customer personas, but there is much more that can be communicated pre-travel by airlines in order to start planting the seeds of this commercialization of the end-to-end journey that will deliver as the passenger starts their trip. Why are we so adamant about this seamless experience being taken care of? Airports are in charge of that part, and it's extremely important because when the seamless journey doesn't exist, there is anxiety. If you figure it out, then that anxiety is removed. And now the mental model of the passenger has been moved from what we call the task mode, which is I gotta figure out process-wise where I'm going. So my brain is taken care of the procedures and processes. If I have a seamless journey, that modality is already removed. And now I'm open to the next frontier, which is the discovery mode. And the discovery mode is where I'm ready. I am in a mood to explore my environment. And when I'm ready to explore environment, that's where I am also more open-minded to buy something. So that interconnectedness between the seamless journey and the commercial journey is extremely important to almost enable and empower the commercialization along the way of the journey. And then the last piece that also is, I think, housed, and we're going to talk more about the cross between airlines and airports, but is once you've gotten me there, right? Like think of like one is like I've built the journey, I've put you in a mood. Two is like I'm in a mood, and now the architectural design layout has allowed me to experience and land in front of a concession. Number three is about now that I'm here, how easy is it for me to buy what I came to buy? How easy is it to pay? How fitting is the what I'm seeing? Is it something that I'm interested in buying? When we say personalization, of course, that whole like idea that we're going to have each person and know their what they need is probably a little aspirational. However, we've seen already several airports engage in a very deep passenger persona research that defines cultural backgrounds, preferences of what they want to even eat. So then it doesn't have to be that I have the specific item you're looking, but it can be in the same category that I know my passenger type is seeking or is more open to buying. Now, what does that mean in terms of the people that are serving this airport? And back to the customer service teams and the customer experience from a human standpoint. Well, that's where we have to go beyond the directions of a check-in person that says, here is where the all gates are. This is where, if we are clever, we can empower that gate agent to also say, and by the way, if you have time and if they have a child, trust me, they're a little early. You should try our blah blah restaurant. And if they're even more so inclined, they can say, we have our homemade or our local item in this restaurant. Go and check our sandwich that is very famous locally. So that's kind of where we go back from the infrastructure and what's built around the commercial journey, and we start talking about how are we going to activate this infrastructure. And we cannot activate infrastructure without activating people. But these people need to be taught different things. They need to be really pushing that infrastructure. And honestly, like I thought very much, should I keep the word push? But I decided to keep it because I think it's important that this becomes a mandate. That person at the doors and across the journey, no matter what role they have, they would need to have this mandate to say, hey, I want you to seek opportunities of featuring our concessions. I want you to know our concessions well enough that you can match what we have internally in the post security with the persona that you're seeing at the front, because everyone owns revenue. And this is where we're back to this whole, how are we going to make sure that we don't have this almost friction that I mentioned earlier between the customer experience and customer service teams and the commercial teams? How are we going to make sure that everyone is connected and understands that concessions is part of the overall experience, and that that's something we really want to do? We want this to be, we want almost like, it's almost like a goal. We want every passenger that goes through our infrastructure to have a taste of our experience in concessions, whatever it may be for their purpose of the trip that day. So how do we get there? We do get there by really thinking a little bit more innovative in terms of the people we have and how we train them. I'm going to introduce, and again, I want to make sure we know this is not a new role. This is an old role that we are relaunching, but it's almost the revenue share agent. Think of that person that would be having a day job, right? And all of the people that are at the airport are essentially these revenue share agents. They are the people that have it in their job description that as a connected mandate, and again, not in a bad way, we're embedding concessions in the strategy of our passenger experience, but we are having this united goal and objective to push concessions. We're going to train people to think like this and to get beyond that stigma of the revenue is bad or we are selling, I'm not a seller. We're going to couch this whole part of the journey in the overall training. But even more so, we're going to apply the Ritz-Carlton model, and we're going to invite every new hire to experience our concessions. How are they supposed to recommend an item or go and tell us about something that's easy to purchase if they themselves haven't tasted everything in the airport? Yes, this probably will cost some money, but it also will be in everybody's best interest to activate every human at the airport to be that person. Can you imagine the power if you build a team like that? I mean, this is going to be a huge lift if she is incentivized to invite him to go and experience something and make it welcoming and hosting, right? Like hospitality driven, right? There is a way that can be just warm and fuzzy when you say, you should check this out. We're very proud with this. Whatever it is that she's trying to sell or has matched him with. That's what we call commercializing the sense of place. We see the sense of place as a big mandate across programs, which is wonderful. And we talk about sense of place in terms of design, physical design and architecture. But what if we take that concept of the local proud moments and we commercialize them in a way of through concessions? In other words, a customer service team would recommend and the concessions will deliver. In that way, everyone will be a revenue owner. Now, guy, I'm gonna call out I'm gonna keep banging on this because unless there is a seamless journey, none of this would work. Because if someone is worried about where their gate is or how far they are from their gate, they're not going to stop. They're going to be looking for different type of conversations. That's why the almost the prerequisite of all of this is that we have the signage and the whole journey mapped in terms of wayfinding and information sharing as a base. So what can you do tomorrow to get started on this new novel concept? Well, the first thing you can do is figure out, even low-hanging fruit, find out how many of your screens are actually displaying flight information in concession areas. In other words, is there a place where I can eat or consume the concession and be close to a screen? Or do we have the model where the FIDs, the flight information displays, are primarily either by the place where we just pass through security so we know where the gates are, and then it's here and there? Is there anything that you can do to create more calm and more less, remove the anxiety while people are sitting somewhere dining? You can also either train customer service and leadership to shift that mentality that we just talked about, or you can start just talking about this in your leadership meetings. You can start this kind of change management at the leadership level before you invest any money to do anything else. And you can also run seasonal and local promotions to commercialize the sense of place. In other words, you know, you don't have to start with a big mandate. Maybe you start with a couple of promos and see if you can get your customer service team to start pushing it and talk about it. And now let's talk about the optimized concessions. And I'll pause here so we can do a little poll.
The poll is launched.
So the first question we have is, how confident are you that your current concession strategy maximizes passenger engagement? Not confident, slightly confident, moderately confident. Oh, what a cop-out, moderately. I wish I should have taken that answer topic option out.
We need a couple more folks to participate. The polls are counting down. No wrong answers here.
No answers.
We're getting there. We're getting
Yeah,
there.
they're coming in. Thank
so
you.
much.
Oh, I don't see it. So there is a delay on my side, unfortunately. Every time we record, guys, it's like goes crazy. Okay, so we have one. Oh, wow. Okay. We have someone that's very confident. A couple of people are very confident. Okay.
Okay, we have
Be-
80%.
Before you move out, before you move on, Monica, I just wanted to see, can someone give me a heart or some, I want to go back to that very confident person later on. Who is very confident that they have maximized their passenger engagement? Are you shy? Come on.
You can send us an email later.
I don't think it was me. I was very confident in the alignment with the customer segments, but I don't think I said very confident on the engagement piece.
Okay. Okay. Maybe go to the next one, Monica.
Yes, they're all there. The second one, to what extent do your current concessions align with the personas? No alignment, 17%, some alignment, 33%, and 50% said full alignment.
Okay.
So about half had full alignment. So there's some movement. in that
Some
direction.
movement. Where's your biggest priority? Revenue growth, payment. Okay. Okay. So we have revenue growth. Well, that's good. That means we're talking about the right things today. Okay, should we end the poll so we can continue? And I want to make sure I see we're almost, we have 12:30. I want to maybe 5 more minutes and then I'm going to go to the questions. Did you, I'm going to remove this from my side. Okay. Okay, well, so let's talk quickly about the second concept that we have, which is around making making spending money easy. So making spending money easy and accepting reward points as a currency. I think that's very much the two ways that we can figure things out. So these are things that I've seen that I think are pretty good. I think a modern airport that doesn't have a dual checkout experience is probably missing a big mark here, right? So that has become a very big standard across. So making sure that when you design whatever type of facilities and concessions, I think it's important to enable this self-service at this point. Another one that we saw in Japan actually is this wonderful idea of a pre-order pickup. We talked about this back in the day. I mean, I can imagine that it's a little hard to do logistically, but I think it's still something that should be considered. I think another concept that I think that back in the day, I think Gateway, not JMP was talking about back in the day was to have the ability also to ship, especially if you want to have concessions that are, if you actually figure out shipping, you would be able to have a unlock like a potential of completely new set of concessions that are not even in airports today. And the last piece I'll say is I personally am very big fan of is this whole idea of the unified payment system, especially for new infrastructure. But it doesn't have to be only new. I feel like we can also go back and retrofit some stuff. Why that's a pet peeve of mine is because when I was in JetBlue, I tried to do this and it didn't work from the airline perspective, only because every concession had their own payment system and we could not figure it out for the life of us. But also, if you have a unified payment system, then you can really easily and cheaper create that link to accept reward points. And if you are able to do this, and you can do this even during disruption, now you are a partner of the airlines that is absolutely unique and irreplaceable. There is nothing more painful for an airline than figuring out compensation during disruptions. And this can solve it all. Because now most airlines have their credit cards, that they will be able to use this as an incentive to get more signups, and the redemption would be possible in your real estate. Now, it's a very tough thing to do. I'm not going to say it's easy, okay? But you can start. You can assess the payment system, even getting an inventory and recording how many do you even have is a start. See what are the agreements that they have with credit cards, if any, and match that with the carriers that are coming to your airports to see if there is something that's common that can be a starting point. Then go talk to this payment system or airport operator if you have someone as a middleman there or middlewoman there, and meet with the concession leader at your airport to strategize what you can do together. I mean, again, like I know it's doable. I wanted to do it, so I've stood up teams like this, so I know it's possible, and it will unlock a lot. I mean, it's not a low-hanging fruit, but it's a big fruit, so that can be taken. And if you're an airline, I really think you can pilot the program at your hub. Like, go to the big hub airport and start talking to them about what's happening here to see, again, check your big loyalty agreement with the credit card carrier and see what you can do. And, maybe engage a consultant to liaise and do all this headache because you have corporate real estate person there, you're not local, or you don't have enough team there. It can be done either internally or externally. This is just a project, but I know that once that's done, you can take off. And I think the last item I want to end on before we move to Q&A is that we really need to redefine customer experience a little bit and think of it about kind of widen the definition and think of it as anything that brings value to the passenger. And once you have that mentality, concessions become a completely obvious choice and part of the journey that would be part of the overall experience. And with that, we're going to move to Q&A. And I'll ask Monica if there are any questions from the chat. Or if not, I can go to some of the questions we got before.
I don't know.
Sharon,
what I was gonna say.
sorry, we derailed you with a little tech moment.
I'll just share what really resonated with me was when at the beginning you talked about, and I think you called it seamless journey, but about the removal of anxiety being an important sort of precursor to them being in the mood to spend. And that really resonated with me, that piece about the removal of anxiety kind of needs to come first.
Yeah. Well, maybe if somehow they have a hook in it and it
Yeah.
becomes again, you go to the loyalty program. I think that's the key is, there was a question that somebody had asked. I don't know which one triggered me to talk about this in the answers. But I think it was something around how can airports and airlines collaborate better, and I think one of the things I wanted to leave people with today is that coming from an airline background, I think one of the big challenges is that airports are speaking to the wrong people in the airlines. Because the infrastructure of airlines is that we have corporate real estate at the local level, but the people that are controlling the revenue and credit card relationships and all of the things that is the common denominator that would be the common incentive to collaborate are usually in headquarters. You wouldn't have a local representative of American Airlines for the loyalty program. So one of the things I wanted to leave those who attended with is kind of like this insight. If you can go and work with through your corporate real estate people to figure out how we can, it doesn't have to be a regular thing, but maybe you do like an industry day or something, but you can invite the loyalty representatives that come from headquarters of the carriers. Then you can have a completely different conversation, but you have the right people coming. Okay, any other question, or should I go to the list now that you guys can unmute? Stacy, I see you came. Do you have any question from your region?
Hey, good afternoon. And you know what? I'm sorry. I asked a question in my registration that I cannot remember for the life of me. So if we have that, I would like to get that answered. I
Okay.
remember.
I will pull it up for you, Stacy.
Thank you.
Oh, Liz is on it. She actually has everyone's questions. She's the secret person.
It might have been a question or a statement. I don't remember, but I remember.
But then if we have them, Liz, maybe I'll just pull them and
I have it right here if you want me to share it.
Yeah,
Oh,
please.
here it is.
Yeah, so the challenge is siloed operations between departments, and the question really is like the bridging the gap between airline passenger digital interaction and airport customer digital interaction.
Yes. So my answer, I actually wrote it here, is called API. So API integrations. I think the answer for this really is to create more and more airlines. How do I say that? There is not going to be a modern airline that doesn't have an app. There's just no way. Why? Because airlines want to move check-in outside of the airport to reduce queues and to make business travel much more faster for those who don't have check bags. So in that sense, their incentive will be always to optimize, invest, and push more things in the apps. So if you're an airport having digital interactions with the airport, with the airlines, I think the key will be to find your technology team and go and find the app team in the airline and start talking about which, again, value proposition for the passenger airports are stronger in, which airlines are stronger in. An airline will be very strong in knowing delays. You guys would own queues. And I think that's another thing that when we're building now airports, we're talking a lot about smart airports need to build more and more technology that manages crowding visually, virtually, that can control and report every choke point on the journey, because that's what an airline would want. They're gonna be like, I want you to tell me how long is the wait at TSA. I want you to tell me if I need to pre-order the coffee or the coffee shop is open now and I can just go and drive by if I'm going in now. These are the pieces that you as an airport control and the airline would never have access to. So that when you trade almost these digital interactions, you need to know what you have. And if you don't have it, you need to build it, right? You need to build this trading chips, because as we always said back in the day, whoever owns the customer owns everything. The money is in the customer. That's why Google wanted to own the Uber stuff and is talking about, hey, I want to know your PNR so I can manage the Uber side of things. So there's like a battlefield about this data and insights and who's going to own the customer. So a smart airport would need to identify what are the pieces of information that you have, and then own them, or if you don't have enough, build more, and then go back to the airline and say, hey, airline or airlines, here's what you guys have, but this is what I have. And I'm not going to give it to you because you're not giving me your information. So let's talk about revenue share. Yeah, and I think that's the key to seamless integrations, is figuring out this who owns what and making sure that we have revenue share agreements so that the money is everybody's and we have peace. Because the myth that one of the stakeholders will own the whole revenue will never work, and the customer is suffering because no one has all of it. Everybody has pieces of it, and we're essentially fighting about who's going to own everything, and that's not going to happen. I know it's a little more complicated answer, but this is the process, and the long. It's a long journey. It's a long journey because the money is a lot. Because whoever owns it will own a lot. So there is not going to be an easy, no one is going to give it up easy. That's not going to be an overnight gift that someone would give another stakeholder.
No, I appreciate that answer. It's kind of like, the passenger checking in their flight or checking the status even before they come to the airport. That's when you want to grab them, right, and let them know, hey, what can you expect? But yeah, good point about trying to get together and to trade chips on who has what. But that's a hard bargain to drive sometimes.
I agree. But that's where it doesn't matter whose screen the passenger is looking at, right? If you create the right revenue share agreement with the airlines, it can still be your information, right? You can still say, hey, I'll give you all the queuing, I'll give you all the pricing, I'll give you the menus, I'll give you everything I have from concessions perspective. Because it doesn't matter that it's their screen. Who cares? You're going to still get the money. But if you don't get the money, why the hell would you give them all this information? So that's if I was having strategic conversations, I wouldn't spend as much time on whose app it is or even make an app. I would think more of like, what are you going to give me if I am allowing you to show the menu of my Starbucks or whatever, my restaurant, and kind of harness more the data piece of this. And by the way, for those who don't know, just to facilitate the conversation, Sharon was from from DFW, and Stacy is from BWI, so you guys know who's who. So I'm gonna go very quickly through the questions that my team has given us here from your registrations, and I'm gonna try to go through them very quickly. Oh, that was the first one. So here you go. We just covered that question. The next question we got was, how can airports and airlines collaborate to enhance the end-to-end passenger journey? I think these two are very much connected, but I really think the bigger answer here is don't talk to the local person. Engage in the airlines at a different altitude and figure out how the local people can facilitate getting you in front of the right people in airlines so you can have the right conversation. The next one was, it is becoming more crucial to show the revenue generating potential of CX. What's the best way to do this? I do think the best way to do this is to rethink the team and rethink what customer service is, and almost think beyond customer service, because we are getting this mandate and we historically have been sticking our guns. Customer experience people have kind of focus more on talking about service, and I think we need to start talking more about experience and engage with the other stakeholders. We need to understand better digital and have more equip ourselves with iPads and relevant information on the go, so that we can again figure out how to service the right information at the right time. And again, education. I think we still have very much CX be a separate entity from commercial. There needs to be some sort of almost like a culture element in airports to bridge the gap between those two teams, make offsites, figure out how to incentivize people, get them to be besties, and not think that that's a trade-off, especially in the budget. I mean, I fought for customer experience budgets across different industries, so I know that very well. It always comes down to money. This whole tension comes from the fact that customer experience always thinks like, we're a cost center. I mean, I heard it even in a call with one of you. I was recently with your team, and there was this little like internal jokes that were like criticizing someone. Oh, you're the cost center, you spend money. Like that whole language needs to not be there. If we have this language, we haven't done the thing yet. It needs to be that we're all connected and it's everybody's budget. What are the airport loyalty value propositions? I actually think that we're selling ourselves short as airports. I think airports have a very big value proposition, huge value proposition. Think about again, like elevating that seamless journey. You can monetize perks. People will pay small money, not like huge, but you know what? I'm looking at Bill, like, if you're gonna have 100 million passengers, you make $1 or $2 per passenger, you're gonna make a lot of money. So thinking of all of these utility elements of the journey and monetizing them. Heathrow, for example, has the little fun feature of me scheduling my TSA, my security checkpoint. I mean, do you think I'll pay £1 or £2 to schedule a no with my one daughter and 3 suitcases, blah, blah, that I'm going to go and be there and will not stop and there's not going to be no one crying on the floor? I'll pay £2. But again, scheduling that is a whole thing that the airport can absolutely turn into something. Knowing where your bag is. Young people, we were just now, where the hell were we? I think it was like Japan again. The moment we landed and we were at the belt, every young person around us put some device to say, here's my bag, it's coming here. They knew where the bag was. And they were discussing it among them, how the bag will show up at the belt. So again, you can either do this in your own, or you can sell this capability to another person, another airline. But either way, it's something that is a value proposition. And what I mean by loyalty is the moment you give me these little perks, I will choose you. Like, humans are very interesting psychologically. They will choose your airport for these little ease perks that you are giving them. They will even parking. If I know my parking, these little things are the loyalty value prop, and they're all over. We just need to find them and monetize them. It says that I have paused my screen share. I don't know how that happens. I'm going to reshare. The next question was, what language can better express the ROI of CX, especially when the department is under revenue management? I think we kind of covered that one, so I'm not gonna berate that one. What is the best way to understand and utilize the relationship between airport concessions and CX? I think this whole idea of the revenue person was the answer. How do you best deal with shared data from multiple entities? The name of the game is data sharing agreement, data sharing agreement, data sharing agreement. And the moment we figure this out, we're gonna be fine. And I know it's a lot of work, but the good thing with data sharing agreement is that once you do it, it's done. It's not something that you gotta do all the time. So if you open that project, and you, even if it takes you like 12 months, 9 months, it doesn't matter. Once it's set up, it's gonna be done. And then you can just run your partnerships and agreements and make all the money in the world through this fairly equitably allocated revenue that will benefit the customer and will benefit all of you. And that's a wrap. 12:55, 5 minutes left.
Let's bring up that last slide with the QR code for our feedback survey, but I'm also going to post the link
Sorry, I didn't know
in the chat as well. We'd love to have your feedback. We also have a link to, I'll also add in the chat, but it's in our feedback model if you wanted to schedule some time to explore further with us all of these great ideas and how you may be able to implement them at your airport or with your airline. I'm also putting our Calendly link too for scheduling a one-on-one.
Thank you for joining us, and I hope this was useful.
Thank you.
I hope our take on this was somewhat differentiated, so you guys can shine. Because you know, we all want people that are in our ecosystem to be better than everybody else. And have a wonderful day from us.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Bye,
Thank you so
Alex.
much.
Take care. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.